Welcome to the Women's Wednesday Entrepreneur Series. I'm Brandy Stitt, the Program Director for the Women's Business Center in Kansas City. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Today's session is going to focus on Social Media 101. This will be the first part of a four-part series focused on social media strategies. Today is going to be a broad overview of social media, and then we'll deep dive into Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram in our follow-up sessions over the next 3 Wednesdays. We have been recording all of our Women Wednesday sessions, and we have been posting those on our YouTube channel. We will also be recording today's session and posting that on our YouTube channel as well. It typically takes us a couple of days to get that edited and posted, so give us some time and we will share that link and information with you when we have it available. So today our presenters are Aviva Ajmera with Solve KC and Christina Hager with Digital Ovations, and we're super excited to have you guys back again. I do just a quick housekeeping item for our presenters. I've been getting a couple emails from people that are having issues with the Zoom link, so I'm going to work on getting that resolved for the folks that aren't able to pop on, and hopefully we'll have some more folks joining us shortly. But I did want to go ahead and hand it over to you guys and let you know that we should have more people joining us. Thank you very much, and Aviva, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Brandy. I'm actually going to hand it over to Christina to kick us off.
All right. Hi, good afternoon. Thanks so much for having us, to Brandy and to the entire Women's Business Center. We're having a lot of fun and we have a lot of people on today's call. So we're really excited to get started. So as Brandy said, my name is Christina Hager and I'm the president of Ovations Digital, and I'm a social media strategist. So no, this does not mean I just play on Facebook all day. Some days. What it really means is I help individuals, brands, and organizations use social media strategically to reach their business goals. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk to you today, how you can use social media for your organization. I have clients on the B2C and the B2B side: health, wellness, beauty, fashion, e-commerce, restaurants, and then SaaS, tech, education, health, as well as consultants, doctors, lawyers, attorneys, thought leaders like authors and speakers, and then a lot of nonprofits, board members, and individual business leaders. I write for Forbes about social media. I write a column, and I'm a member of the 2019, 20, and now 21 Forbes Communication Councils, and I love talking about social media. And Aviva and I both are business owners. So for the business owners on the call, we understand all of the hats that you wear as a business owner. And right now, social media just might be a blip on your radar. And so what we can really hope we can establish through this series is to give you the education and the tools to really get the best ROI out of your social media.
That's great, Christina. Hi, everybody. I'm Aviva Ajmera. Happy New Year, by the way. We're 3 days into the new year work week, and I think the vacation buzz has already worn off for all of us, unfortunately. I am co-founder and CEO of Solve KC, and I have been giving a version of this class over the last 5 years to entrepreneurs and marketing professionals. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be doing this series with Christina. She is my personal marketing guru. So I know you guys are in for a lot of great information. I did want to note, if you haven't seen our request in the chat, we have 150 people signed up today from 25 states and 8 countries. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. We want to be able to help support your businesses on social media. So please go ahead and note in the chat the city, state, and country, if it's not the US, and your company name. And we will do our best to go in and like and follow. And we just ask that you do the same for Ovations Digital and for Solve KC. The details are in the chat, and you'll see as we go through this class why it's so important for businesses to support one another when it comes to social media. Like Christina, our firm has B2B and B2C clients across many industries, and we also have many nonprofit clients and work with many board of directors. We help them with strategic planning and implementation. We also help them with competitive marketplace assessment and a host of other things, but common to all of this work is marketing and social media. I have been a part of a large international B2C company, 2 international B2B consulting firms, and now I own a B2B consulting firm in Kansas City. I also serve as a board member to several organizations. And what I can tell you is each company, each organization, they use social media differently. So our hope for you today and throughout our series is that you will figure out what works best for you in your organization. We will teach you tips, we'll provide insights, and we'll share some real business examples, all to help you feel more confident in your approach. Before we dive in, I did want to mention this is the first of our 4-part social media series. We have 3 more classes the next 3 weeks in January. Each one will go a lot deeper into each platform. Today, we're going to cover all 4 of the big ones for business. And then we'll dive into Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter in our subsequent classes. You can sign up for those just like you did this class. And one final housekeeping note, we are going to be going pretty fast today. We've got 90 minutes full of a lot of information. Please send your questions either through the Q&A or through the chat. I'll be doing my best to monitor both, and we will try to take 1 to 2 questions at the end of each platform. And the rest, whatever we don't get to today, we will cover in the classes that are specific to the platform that you're asking questions about. Okay, so there's the housekeeping. So just a question for you. What comes to mind when you think about social media? Is it something like, it's really for the younger generation? They've kind of lost the art of conversation. They're on their devices, whether they're a state away or 1 foot away from each other. Or it could be, it kind of reminds me of my 8th grade chemistry class, where I was a little nervous every time I walked into lab because I never knew if I mixed the wrong things together, would I have this big explosion? Or is it, there's a lot of vernacular that I don't really understand, and it's a little intimidating. Well, we don't want you to be intimidated. So our goal for the next 90 minutes is to demystify some of that for you. So here's what we're going to go through. We will talk about why social media is critical for your business. I am an economist by training, so data is really important to convince me to do something. We will also talk about the impact that COVID-19 has had on social media, because I think if you're on this class, you're probably on some social media. Perhaps it's just personal, but maybe business. And I think we can all attest to the fact that we've all been on our devices more than we were pre-COVID. We're going to spend the bulk of our time talking about the highlights of the top 4 social media platforms for business. Along the way, we're going to talk about 2021 trends, because there are definitely some new things that have happened that we want you to be aware of, so you can think about if they are appropriate for you to address in your business. And then, as I said, we'll talk about Q&A. And then we're going to wrap up with helping you make what you learned today tangible and actionable. I know that Brandy has sent a few slides to you in advance. A lot of those are worksheet slides for you, so you can make notes and you can leave our session today knowing what you need to know to build your Q1 social media plan for your business. Okay, so I don't know if this number is surprising to you or not, but simply put, if you have a product or service, you need to be on social media, because 74% of consumers rely on social media to make buying decisions. So this is an aggregated number across all demographics, but interestingly enough, at the end of 2020, we've found this statistic that 75% of millennials' purchase decisions are influenced by a brand's social media presence. Now, why is this important? Because today, millennials have $200 billion in spending power. And if we think about their spending power across their lifetime, they are projected to have 10 trillion. That's TRI, $10 trillion in spending power. So we need to be aware of what influences them making purchase decisions.
So people are following you on social media because they want to learn about your product or service. And by the way, today we're really going to be speaking to B2C and B2B, whether you're an entrepreneur or an established corporation, this all applies to you. And so you can see from this chart, people are wanting to stay up to date with you. That's why they're following you on social. Sure, they want promotions and discounts, but they really want to be entertained. They want to be educated. They want to connect with you. And those last things are really, really popular once COVID hit and we were all stuck inside for a long period of time. That's what people want out of your social media channels. And that's critical to know because people do not want to be sold to over and over and over again. And so when it comes to your business using social media, there's a ton of stats that tell us why people want to use it. We see 92% of marketers are saying social media has helped their business. We see that 92% of customers are retained when companies have a well-crafted approach to social media customer care. So think about it. Are you using your social media for customer care, for customer outreach, for customer service? A huge benefit to using social media. 90% of B2B businesses are seeing an increased exposure, and 78% of consumers are saying that a company's social media posts have in some way impacted their purchase. Now, when it does come to COVID or the pandemic, we're seeing that almost a third of US consumers, they're worried if your business or organization isn't posting on social media or you're not sharing company news, they don't want to spend money with you because they're afraid that your business is closing. So we do see some different reasons that people are following you on social media during the pandemic. And of course, more people than not are likely to use social media to search for businesses online and go with the businesses that have an active social media channel. In fact, and this is a crazy stat, 43% of people who are shopping in brick and mortar stores are also on their phones looking for reviews or looking at your social media channels. Boggling. People are really shopping and engaging with your brands in a completely new way. And it's important to see the way that people are engaging in social media now in 2021. Because for the first time, and Aviva touched on this with millennials, we have a generation that doesn't know catalogs, that is expecting you to seek them out, and that really cares just as much about how a product or service or company makes them feel as they care about what the end product is. And in fact, data tells us in the last year, millennials onward are going to spend more money on products or services if they're like digging on the brand ethos or mission and vision, if they're connecting with the brand in some greater way. We also talked about just the huge spending power of millennials. But for my B2B folks in the audience, let's talk about millennials in the workplace. For the first time at the end of 2020, millennials overtook Generation X as the most populous generation in the workforce. So for the first time, there's a 50% chance that whomever you're trying to book a service with or sell your service to, 50% tells us that on the other end of that line, you may get a millennial. So it's important to know how they're responding, and in a B2B setting or a B2C setting, how they want to use social media. So let's talk a little bit about COVID and its impact on social media. We saw a lot of changing habits. So from 2019 to 2020, we had an increase in the world population of 1%. We had an increase of people on social media of 9%. Social media is huge. To say everyone is on it is not an understatement. Odds are that the person you're looking to sell to or talk to or communicate with is on social. So what happened in March when the pandemic hit? We saw a lot of changing habits. So first, the amount of time that people were on social was just astronomical across every single demographic. More and more people were on social. We also saw that they were willing to take a chance on a new brand. 75% of people in the US changed their spending habits because they were spending with a company they never had before. Very interesting trend. Also, we see that people are going to social media for the news. They have this thirst for the news. And we see that 80% of people on Twitter get their news from Twitter. Yikes. We see that 50% of people on Facebook get their news there. More and more people are using social media as almost a search engine in and of itself, and they're putting in topics into your search bar on social media. So know that people are coming to find out about COVID, to find out about what's going on in the community, to find out about the election results. And so then they're spending more time on the channels. And I think what's probably the most interesting habit was the connection with people and businesses. We saw part of the habit was people were engaging earlier and often in the day. Engagement used to be really huge around lunchtime and then again after dinner, that 7 to 9 p.m. When COVID hit, we really saw that timing change and shift up, and it makes sense. Everyone was on Zoom all day. And so by the time they got home or the time they stepped out of their home office into their kitchen, they were done. They didn't want to go back on their computer. So all of a sudden they were engaging from like 11 to 1 a.m. or even 10 a.m. We had never seen this before. And the way they were engaging with people and businesses was just more robust. They were wanting to know what businesses were doing with the pandemic. They were wanting to know what businesses were doing in light of the election or social issues. And that really brings us to some of the trends and how people were using social media. And this is such an interesting stat to me. Americans spent 90% more time using apps to create and edit visual content than they did before the pandemic. And so that leads us into some of the trends that we saw at the end of the year into this year. So we already talked about engagement is up. People using social media is up. They're spending more time online, and users want more fun content, more content that's educating you. People wanted to learn things when they were stuck indoors. And also that visual content, that's one of the reasons that TikTok exploded. From February to March, TikTok gained something like 20 million new users in the United States. And it's because people were loving sort of that escape from reality by just seeing these fun videos. They predicted by the end of the year, we'd see 65 million monthly users. We're already up to 80 million monthly users in the US. And it really reflects on the other social media channels that you might already be using for your business. For example, Instagram rolled out Reels, little 10 to 15 second bursts that you can create, sort of their answer to TikTok. YouTube rolled out Shorts. LinkedIn added Stories. Twitter added Fleets. Everybody was excited about short form content and how you as an individual or you as a brand, business, organization could create kind of that fun, organic looking content that wasn't super polished in like a 3-minute video and share with them. So what does that mean for your business? When we talk about trends, everybody always wants to know trends for the new year. What can they do for their business to really break through algorithms and break through to the community on the other end of the social media channel? So Aviva and I want to share what we feel are 6 really relevant trends. We'll talk about them more in detail today and then in greater detail in our 201 classes. But the first thing is what I was just talking about, short form video, capturing the attention of your user in 10 to 15 seconds. And you can see this really across all the platforms, Twitter Fleets, LinkedIn Stories, and then of course, Instagram Stories, as well as Reels. We have Go Live. Some of you might have already been using Go Live for your organization, maybe going live on Facebook. LinkedIn added Go Live. And then we're seeing that Instagram, the amount of Go Lives of Instagram, it's really amazing because it's connecting organizations with end users, your customers or your consumers in a really seamless way. They almost feel like they're in the room with you. So that's a huge trend this year. And then social issues. So many things happened in 2020 and a confluence of events where social issues really came to the forefront for a lot of organizations, for a lot of people personally. And really for the first time, we saw a massive uptick in organizations that were not only willing, but felt that they had to draw a line in the sand and make a stand for social issues, whether it was race, climate, something with the election, women's issues, so many different things. And so, no matter where, what your opinions might be about that, we have seen so many businesses take a stand. So we'll talk about what that looks like and how that's maybe impacted their bottom line. Personalized marketing, huge trend for 2021 because everyone wants to feel connected. Connectivity was a huge trend in 2020 because all of a sudden we were at home. A lot of us were stuck and we wanted to feel connected. And so brands and organizations and businesses did a really excellent job of increasing the connection between you on the other end of your computer and them on the other end of their computer. And it made you feel like they were marketing or just talking with you personally. And we'll give some examples of how you might do that for your organization and how that has worked so far. Coupling with this, building experiences. I'm sure we all had huge live events that all of a sudden were going virtual, and creating those experiences, whether it's a huge conference or even we've seen brick and mortar stores create experiences of online shopping to try to mirror the in-person experience. And so thinking about what you and your organization can do to build an experience for your end consumer digitally, super important. And lastly, we are seeing such a rise in employee advocacy. And what we mean by that is giving your employees the permission, the bandwidth, and the information about how they can support your organization online. So this isn't, your employees complaining about you on their Twitter. This is asking your employees to talk about your mission and vision, to talk about the work you're doing, to share your campaign. Aviva has an awesome example of an organization she did that with years ago, because Aviva is a trendsetter, and how that impacted that organization for success. So especially if you are on the B2B side and you're thinking some of these things don't apply to you, using your and engulfing like your employees in this experience on social media is huge in 2021. And all of these things are going to impact your bottom line.
All right. Thanks so much, Christina. So we wanted to share those last two slides with you because we thought it was very appropriate as we close out 2020 and start 2021. Everyone wants to know about trends, but now we're going to focus on the top 4 platforms. The last slide Christina shared and this slide are both in your handouts. We call this slide the money slide because it does a great job of giving you an overview of the top 4 social media platforms for a business and what they are all about. Because one of the reasons you've joined today's class is to figure out which social media platforms are the best for your business. I am not going to read every single bullet point because you've got that in your handout. I'm going to hit about 40% of them. And really the ones I'm hitting, we're going to talk about a little bit more as we go through our class today. So Facebook, I think everybody knows it's the most popular social media platform. LinkedIn is the largest professional network. Instagram is the second most popular social platform, and Twitter is the second most recognized social media platform. So let's talk about a few of the details. When it comes to Facebook, the thing you need to know is that it is the #1 social media site to influence purchase. So if your business is on social media, most likely Facebook is a part of the mix. From a demographic standpoint, it's almost everybody. About 70% of US adults. It does have a lower amount of teens than something like Instagram. So if your business is marketed to teens, Facebook might not be right for you. However, there are over 90 million Facebook business pages. So it is something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Facebook stories have 300 million active users daily. And I bet as soon as they pull the 2020 year-end numbers, that number is going to have gone up significantly. People spend on average 50 minutes a day. They don't do it all at once. If you're on Facebook, just think about how you interact with it. It's 5 or 6 times throughout the day, a handful of minutes at a time. And it is best for photos, videos, links, and events. Let's talk about LinkedIn. If you are a B2B business, or if you're a nonprofit organization, if you are a board member of an organization, LinkedIn is something you should seriously consider. It is a business-oriented social networking site. It is a place for news and articles and conversations, and it is phenomenal for connecting with top industry influencers. From a demographic standpoint, there are over 40 million business pages, and about 80% of the users are over the age of 35. So again, you can see it skews a little bit older, with 44% of the users having an average income of $75,000 a year, and 90 million senior level influencers are on LinkedIn. They just added stories at the end of Q4 2020. We don't think they're as developed as some of the other platforms, but it's good for you to check it out and try it out. Nothing bad is going to happen. I promise you won't have an explosion in your LinkedIn account. It is best for networking, for building credibility, and for business development and B2B businesses. Instagram, a social sharing site around pictures and 60-second videos. 90% of the users are younger than 35. I have a 19-year-old. Instagram and Snapchat are the two platforms that she uses the most often. So if your market is under the age of 35, you really need to seriously think about Instagram. However, the age group of 55 plus is seeing the greatest growth. And the main reason, I believe, is because 75% of businesses use Instagram. And that number has really gone up a lot over the last few years. 53 minutes is the average daily time that users are on Instagram, and that's quite a bit of time. And while Instagram does have a computer, a laptop version, it's really still at its very best on a mobile device. And it is ideal for photos, for videos, and for stories. If you have an image-friendly business, you should seriously consider being on Instagram if you're not already. And then let's talk about Twitter. Twitter now limits posts to 280 characters. It is ideal for conversation, customer questions, and news. The last time statistics were pulled, which was the end of last year, they had 600 million users. It is where hashtags started. We're not going to talk a lot about hashtags today, but we're going to talk about it a lot in our future classes. 67% of businesses are on Twitter because it's real time. It's ideal for PR and news and real-time customer engagement. And it is great for photos, videos, and links.
Ciao, come stai? Come ti chiamo? Okay, so if you knew I was conducting this class in Italy, you would have prepared a little Italian, right? At least to know how much things cost, because when we go to Italy, we want to do some great shopping. So when you go to work in social media, you have to be able to speak the language, because if you can't speak the language, everything quite literally gets lost in translation. And so we want to, again, demystify some of these terms for you, because all of your social media efforts can be measured. But in order to measure them and understand their validity and the ROI they're giving you, you need to know what you're measuring for and what it means. So when we talk about users, we're talking about just the people who are in the platform or channel using that social media channel. Likes is the number of people who either hit the like button or that heart button if you're in Instagram or Twitter. Feed is when you open up your phone in the channel or you open up your computer, that's that rolling list of content on any particular channel. You might see videos, pictures, just text, depending on what kind of channel you're on. And then reach. Reach refers to the number of people who have come upon a particular piece of content. So you can think about what is the reach of any particular post that you're putting on social media. Engagement, this is a huge term, and it refers to the number of people who like, share, or comment on your post. We talk a lot about engagement because social media is designed to be social, and it's a two-way street. And so if you're not having any engagement, you might as well have a billboard somewhere because nobody's really talking back with you. So that's something you always want to see increased on your page. And then share or retweets, it's when people take your content and share it directly to their page. Sometimes they can comment on it as they do it, sometimes not. And then click-throughs, this is a metric tracking the number of people who are on social media and then click through to your website. You might have them click through to various landing pages, home pages, lead forms. There are so many different things we can get into the weeds with, and they'll talk about later, but those are some nice basic terms to get us started. And of course we have hashtag. So hashtag is the pound sign followed by a word or a group of words, and it collects content over that particular subject, that particular group of words on that particular channel. It may be all about a theme, an event, a day, a happening, a saying. A lot of businesses have their own branded hashtag. Nike, hashtag just do it. We have fun and witty hashtags like hashtag Wine Wednesday, which always happens the day of our class, Aviva and I like, hashtag blessed, and then hashtag business leader. So you have serious hashtags and more fun hashtags, but no matter what, they're still collecting content and grouping your content with any other piece of content on that channel that uses that particular hashtag. Also, hashtags can help you for SEO, search engine optimization. So if you want to include hashtags of, let's say, your business name, that will help your business name be shared on the web, which is always very helpful.
Thanks, Christina. I always love that slide because I think sometimes those words can be a little bit confusing, and without knowing the language, it's hard to know how to speak. So thank you for that. Okay, so at the beginning of each of our platforms, we'll have a slide called Fast Facts, like we do here for Facebook. I am not going to cover all of the details on every single slide, but I'm going to hit the headlines. Know that when we do the platform specific classes, we will go into much more detail. So a lot of times we get the question, how many times a week should I be posting? For Facebook, at minimum 3 times a week and a maximum of 10 times a week. As far as what time of day, time does matter. What we've got on the slide here is an average number. What I would suggest is that, honestly, just Google search for your industry or your country what the best times of day are. It makes sense when you look at this that it tends to be in the middle of the work week or on the weekends in the afternoon, and the worst time is in the evening. It's logical if you think about it. And as far as how to boost content, certain things definitely perform better. Being authentic and knowing your audience, having photos and video and Facebook Live. We'll go into all of that in a lot more detail in our Facebook class. It is important to know, though, that posts that are shorter, that 250 characters, have 60% more engagement. So really think about what you're posting. Anytime you get to the point where you've got ... more, think about if you really need everything after it. Sometimes you do, but not all the time. And then something which is kind of fun, if you ask a question or if you have somebody provide an action, you will get 2 times more engagement, which means not only are they liking it, but they're going to comment on it as well. So one of the things we always like doing is showcasing local examples of businesses. So on this slide, what we've done is pull out 4 Kansas City organizations: Joe's Kansas City Barbecue, the Kansas City Ballet, Commerce Bank, and Children International, which is a global nonprofit, but their world headquarters is here in Kansas City. And the reason we mention these organizations is because not only do they have great followership on Facebook, but they are also on other social media platforms. So if you are looking for good examples of businesses across a range of industries or nonprofits, these are 4 examples that we would suggest that you start to like and follow so you can see what kinds of posts they put out. So why is a business page important for Facebook? Well, most importantly, in our digital world, it is your storefront. When you have a business page for your business, it is searchable and public, and it allows potential customers to learn about who you are and to also get a sense of what your current customers think about you. From your standpoint, it allows you to customize your message, and it allows you to measure your advertising effectiveness. It is a place where you can showcase your hours, your location, and your directions. Keep them updated. We've noticed a lot of companies, organizations As COVID has happened, they might have made one change in the beginning and maybe one change in the summer, but as we went into Q4, their hours might have changed, et cetera, and they didn't keep their information updated. It's free for you to do that. So make sure whatever is current for your business, you have it updated on your Facebook business page. Christina talked earlier about ways to increase your search engine optimization. Facebook business page is a way to do that because it shows you exist. And the more activity that you have on it, it gives you a chance to connect and engage and be in the mind of your customers.
You can have so many different capabilities from your Facebook page that you just don't have from a personal page. Your business page allows you to gain insights on your customers. Who are they? What are their hobbies? What have they listed on Facebook? What times of day are they on? Where do they live in terms of zip code? Gather emails, enhance your customer service through messaging, run targeted ads. And we will talk a lot about Facebook ads in our 201. That's a monster of a subject we could spend a whole series on. It lets you build brand loyalty and also drive traffic to your website. And also keep an eye on your competitors. There's something called a watch page on the bottom of a business page where you can actually plug in your competition and see how they're doing compared to you in terms of engagement, posts, things like that. And really, people are using Facebook and they expect to use it with businesses. So 78% of Americans consumers have discovered products on Facebook. Almost 40% are saying they're following a Facebook page in order to receive an offer. So when I hear facts like that 39%, if they followed you to get an offer, now you need to be able to keep them connected with you and provide some value for them on your Facebook page.
So we often get a question, it's probably the most common question that we get, which is, how do I know if I need a personal and a business page? And Christina's got a great response for you for that.
So a personal page is for your personal use. If you fight with your uncle about politics, it's for you to look at pictures of your grandkids or stalk your children and see what they're doing on the weekends. It's for personal use. You don't have any access to targeted audience data or to geo-target or to run ads or to boost posts or to add any information. So if you're running a business, even if it's a solopreneur adventure, definitely get a business page. It's free and it comes with a ton of different options. Now, if your audience, if you know for sure you are not going to use Facebook, if you're just going to use it to put your website over and over and over again, if you don't have time for it, then don't be on Facebook for sure. If you know that your target audience is on LinkedIn and that's what you're committed to and that's where your efforts are going to be, that's fine. But odds are, as Aviva told us from the demographic, something like 50 or 60% of every single aged demographic is on Facebook. So if you have to start with one demographic, we're probably going to suggest coming over to Facebook and getting a business page because it's free.
There you go. So Facebook has changed in the last year, as all of the social media platforms have. And we frequently get the question, what are the current Facebook trends for my business? So Christina's going to share 4 of them with you.
So Facebook is always trying to work in the last 3 years to give the end user a better experience. And so because of that, they're really rewarding business pages that are using authentic content, that aren't just selling, because they know that's not really what their end user wants. So when you use personalized marketing or you combine the data that you have and create a personal experience for your audience on Facebook, that is huge. You can do that with ads really well. Let me give you an example. So Lexus, the lovely luxury car company, ran a personalized Facebook ad campaign where they created this really cool experience of taking like 1,000 different ads and merging their car with musicians. And they really targeted the different types of music that people were interested in, and they served it that kind of ad. And because of that, it was huge they had a 1,678% increase in their engagement. I've literally just never even seen a number like that when it comes to engagement. It was huge because they gave people what they wanted. They took the crossing of their interests and put them together. And so people really responded to it. And this campaign reached something like 11.2 million people. Huge. Now, maybe you don't have the budget of Lexus. Fair. So a way to translate this is into your life is you look at your audience. And if you're saying my audience is 30 to 40 years old and I'm selling health and wellness and half of my audience says they're into meditation, instead of continuing to share information about maybe a supplement that you're selling, perhaps you go live with a guided meditation. That's something that really offers value and personal value for your audience. So finding those connections of what your audience wants, that's not just sell to them, is huge, especially in 2021. Also using your messenger. So we're seeing that a good open rate, an expected open rate for emails is like 20%. But we're seeing that messaging has an open rate of something close to 80%. This is huge. So experiment with how you can talk to your target demographic on Facebook with sending them a message in your messenger app, or what that might look like for you.
Okay, I posted in chat, and know that I will do this as we close out each section. If you have any questions, and you can quickly type them in, we'll try to answer them. Otherwise, we are going to move on into LinkedIn, and know that we'll answer your question in our Facebook class, which is next Wednesday. So let me give you a little bit of a sneak peek into what we're going to share with you next week. As we talk about Facebook, one of the things we're going to start talking about is algorithms, because it is the ultimate mystery of social media. And I know that I ask Christina about them all the time. So we're going to help you with some tips to understand how to get your algorithms up. I'll give you a teaser. Part of it is you have to be active. Okay. And so that's why at the beginning of the class, we said, go ahead and tell us the name of your businesses, and we'll try to find you on social and like and follow you. And for all of us that are in this class today, we are now a community of supporting one another. So we ask that you also do that for Solve and for Ovations Digital. We'll talk a lot more about business pages and Facebook ads. And we'll talk about the power of groups on Facebook to get your message out and to bring awareness to your business. We'll also talk about going live. And I did get a question earlier about tools that I answered in the chat. For each of our next few sessions, we're going to talk about tools for not only content creation, but also scheduling, because it is a commitment to have an effective social media plan, and it does take time, but there are tools out there to make it a little bit easier for you. And then, of course, we'll talk about some 2021 trends. Okay, so let's talk about LinkedIn. So as we mentioned earlier, if you are a B2B business, know that 92% of your fellow B2B marketers are using LinkedIn. So you've absolutely got to be on LinkedIn. There are a few things that are an absolute must in LinkedIn. You have to have a professional photo. So many of us that are on LinkedIn still don't have a picture of ourselves. Some of us have really unique names. Some of us don't. And there are 100 of you in the world. Make sure there's a picture of you in a professional setting, and you will get 21 times more profile views. You're also 36 times more likely to receive a message. And we'll talk a lot more about how to engage on LinkedIn in our LinkedIn session in 2 weeks. It is important that you go all the way through and fill out the LinkedIn template. And my next slide will go into that a little bit more in detail. And it's also important that you realize what your goal should be as far as how many number of followers you should have. Now, I don't want to scare you, but the truth is, if you want LinkedIn to be effective for your business, you personally need to have 500 plus connections. And if you are a CEO, the recommendation is 1,000 plus. I know this number can feel incredibly daunting for some of us. We're going to teach you how to get those connection numbers up so that you can kind of hit these important benchmarks to make all of your resources that you're going to put into LinkedIn give you the best ROI. So here are the 7 key steps to improve your profile on LinkedIn. We talked about a professional photo. A few years ago, LinkedIn also added the option for you to put a background. Lots of people on LinkedIn just kind of have that generic background. It's not awful, but it's a generic background. Why wouldn't you want a background that more symbolizes who you are as a business person or represents the organization that you have? Use and create a descriptive headline with keywords. So for example, I have that I'm a CEO of a company, that I'm an entrepreneur, that I'm a board director, and that I'm an angel investor. Those are some key words that encapsulate who I am professionally. Use the opportunity to tell your story in your summary. It shouldn't go on and on and on and have, chapters, but have it be descriptive enough that if someone's kind of wondering who you are and what you're all about, they get a really good snapshot in a handful of sentences. The next key step is that you should showcase your expertise. And what that means is detail out the work that you have done. We talk about this in a lot more detail in our LinkedIn session, but know that it's important to take the time to fill out the field. I will tell you, the LinkedIn template, so to speak, used to be about twice as big as it is today. So if you went in a few years ago and it felt a little overwhelming, it's much more simple now, but they have all those fields in there for a reason. It's because people search on those fields. So if you don't have information in there, people aren't going to find you when they're looking for people that fit certain criteria. The 5th step is education. So the quick tip on education, if you graduated more than 10 years ago from wherever, whatever your last educational place is, you don't need to put the years down, but you do need to kind of list out where you went to school. If you're into your career for 15 plus years, you really don't need high school, but have college in there or any certifications that you have earned since then. The next area is volunteer experience and causes. And this is something that has become more and more popular over the last few years. I will tell you that I have had reach outs from quite a few organizations, people I don't even know, because they found my profile on LinkedIn and they were inviting me to consider being a board member. So if that is something that's of your interest, it could be a nonprofit board, it could be a for-profit board. It's important in your LinkedIn profile to illustrate what causes are important to you, where you have volunteered. So again, people can get a snapshot of your experiences and what you can bring to their organization. And the final point is recommendations. Again, LinkedIn has made it easier than it used to be. I don't have 100 recommendations. I have just a handful on my profile, and they're the ones that are most relevant to the work I'm doing now. Another way to think about it is if you are looking to change careers, recommendations are a great place for people to endorse what you're trying to accomplish now. So it might not be your 20-year career that was in finance. Maybe you're starting a nonprofit organization and you want to be able to leverage somebody recommending you because they've worked with you in a volunteer capacity maybe, or at another nonprofit. There's a lot of different ways you can slice what the recommendations are about. There's a great little feature in there to send requests out to people. What I always recommend is you follow up with a personal message to them and even offer, if they would like, to give them a few sentences on the recommendation, and then they can turn it into their own words. Again, the whole idea is you want to make it easy because you're asking for a favor from somebody. They have no idea what specifically to put into the recommendation that would be most helpful for you. So just make it easy for them. Okay, so now let's talk about LinkedIn as it relates to your company. So a quick little story. One of my darling companies in Kansas City, a client of mine is McCown Gordon. And when I first started working with them back in 2015, their marketing department was 2 people, and they were 99% focused on just creating RFPs. So Understandably, they weren't really putting a lot of effort into their social media because they just didn't have the capacity to do it. At that time, they had about 300 followers, and I went in to see how they were doing today versus just 2 months ago. They are up to now almost 9,000 followers. It is amazing to me the growth that they have had in the last few years. And it all goes to the power of social media marketing and the power of a business page on LinkedIn. What a business page does for you. So similar to a business page in Facebook, it allows you to showcase your company. It allows you to create buzz and brand awareness for your company. And depending on the type of company that you have, it also gives you the opportunity to position your company as a thought leader. If you've got employees that you want to brag about, it's a great place to highlight team expertise. Not only is it great for all of your followers to see the great talent that you have, but from an employee morale standpoint, it's really exciting for your employees to know that you think so highly of them, that you're showcasing them. Having a LinkedIn business page is a great way to nurture existing relationships, improving your overall company visibility. More and more, we are seeing organizations use it as a recruiting tool, because here's what happens. When somebody is looking to apply for a job, the first thing they do is check you out on social media. They want to learn about who you are. Yes, they'll go to your company website, but it doesn't have all the personality that social media can have. So know that having a really engaging, current, and interesting LinkedIn business page will help you with recruiting, and it will also always drive traffic to your company website. So one of the questions that we get asked a lot about LinkedIn is also, what are the current trends? So Christina's going to share with you 3 current trends on LinkedIn.
So you might have noticed that the LinkedIn experience has really changed over the past year. Now, if you were on LinkedIn 5 or 10 years ago, it's a radically different place. But even in the last year, it's really changed. And LinkedIn is focused on adding authenticity. They also understand that, again, millennials are now half of the workplace, and Gen Z is coming up right there behind them. So now they've incorporated stories, polls, LinkedIn Lives, basically ways to get rid of the building blocks digitally and to help it feel like a more comprehensive and organic experience. I talked a little bit about employee advocacy on social media, and that's a huge trend on LinkedIn and will be in 2021. Again, if you have an organization and you're bothering to put out information from your company page or key leadership, there's no reason that your employees shouldn't be sharing that regularly. So we'll talk about how you can give them the power and the tools to do that effectively in our LinkedIn 201. And then we're seeing a huge rise in the social media savvy CEO. I'll tell some stories in 201 of CEOs who are really getting it right, like Danny Meyer of Union Square Hospitality or Shake Shack, and CEOs who are really getting it wrong, like the former CEO of CrossFit, not using social media well, and it got him the boot from his job. So you're going to see about how CEOs are really rising on social media and how your organizational leaders might use social media, especially LinkedIn, to create that brand advocacy, thought leadership, and transparency. In fact, fun fact, employees want to work for a CEO who is active on social media 2 to 1. And yet half of CEOs don't even have one social media profile. So something to think about for your leadership team.
So we've got a great question from James that many of you may be wondering. And his question was, if I've got a first company post on Facebook and a first company post on LinkedIn, should it be the same content or should it be different?
You're going to have different audiences. So if you need to save some time and effort, it can be the same, but I would tailor the language for those different groups. On LinkedIn, you're always going to have a friendly but little more professional tone. On Facebook, you can be a little more casual. One thing that Aviva and I always talk about, and she knows I preach, is taking content and just adjusting it. So you don't have to have brand new content for every single channel. So just adjust it. On LinkedIn, you'll use certain hashtags with it. On Facebook, you'll use other hashtags, and that's the way you can adjust that same content that you can put both places. That's a great question.
Great. I'm glad you said that, Christina, because I responded to James in the chat before I shared it with everyone joining us today. And thankfully, we had a very, very similar answer. You've taught me well, Christina.
Very good.
Okay, so here's what's coming up in our LinkedIn class that we are offering in 2 weeks. It will be on January 20th. We are going to talk in more detail about building your personal profile and getting connections. Because as you know, your numbers are 500 plus and 1,000 plus. We'll talk about business pages, and I've got a great graphic to show you how to get followers on LinkedIn, because it is a little bit of effort. It's not like you can go out and get people. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about LinkedIn for leaders. Christina just mentioned a little bit as far as CEOs, but it is so important, even if you're not a leader in your organization, if you are a leader in any capacity of anything that you spend time on, LinkedIn is a wonderful place for you to really bring that thought leadership to the forefront. We'll talk about groups in LinkedIn. We'll talk about hashtags, and we'll talk about tools. And then we will talk a bit more about LinkedIn 2021 trends.
Perfect. So that is 2 weeks from today. So let's navigate over to Instagram and talk a little bit about it. So unlike the previous two channels we've discussed, on Instagram, you absolutely have to have an image. You cannot just post text. So you have to have a photo or a video. It's really best for your phone. And it's really great for businesses that are showcasing a beautiful product, retail, art, food, entertainment, beauty, fitness. It's no wonder this has been the rise of sort of the influencers, and the beauty bloggers have done really well on Instagram. And it's great to show your brand authenticity because it's just a little more casual of a platform. You're seeing that last year, 75% of US businesses were going to plan to use Instagram. And I think those numbers shook out. We'll see in a couple months. Tons of people are advertising on Instagram, and Instagram, fun fact, is owned by Facebook. And so James, I think, who asked about sharing content, there's actually a way from your phone that on your business Instagram page, with just a swipe of a button, you can share automatically to your Facebook page. And Facebook actually prioritizes that content because Instagram and Facebook have that kind of best buddies relationship. And so if you're going to be on Facebook and you're thinking about adding Instagram, it's an easy sort of ad. We're seeing stories, which I'll talk a little bit about stories next, but we're seeing the rise of that. And people are really discovering products and services on Instagram, and they're buying them. 83% have discovered a new product or service on the platform, and it has huge engagement. Remember that likes, shares, retweets, or comments. 58 times the engagement of Facebook, 120 times the engagement of Twitter. So people are really in the platform to talk to you as a business or as an individual. And so again, just like Facebook, if you're going to have your business on Instagram, you need a business page because it's free. You can link it to your website. And if you really want to see success on Instagram, you need to try hashtags. Post at regular times and key times. You can always Google for your industry type and get some key times. You can run giveaways and promotions and engage with your followers. And you can also use Instagram stories. So I want to tell you a little bit about Instagram stories because I've seen a lot of organizations be nervous about using these or just not sure, maybe even what they are. So they're posts and videos that are 10 seconds. If they're videos or just a static image, they disappear after 24 hours. So they have more of a casual feel, and they're viewed in a slideshow format, like a reel, which means they just rotate one after the other, like a commercial on your television. And Instagram stories actually live at the top of your feed, meaning when someone opens Instagram, at the top, all the stories are right there, which means someone isn't constantly scrolling to find you. They can see your story right there at the top, and your story, or your business's story, organically rolls into a personal story of someone else's, into another brand's. And so it just has a different feel to it. They're a great way to increase authentic engagement. Stories gives you a lot of options to run polls, ask questions of your audience, put stickers, music, just kind of have a fun feeling. But they're not just fun. 500 million people are using Instagram stories every day, and a third of those that they're viewing are from businesses. Brands are really posting, and 62% of people are saying they're more interested in a brand or product after they see it in stories. So it's no surprise US marketers are increasing the ad spend and the budget on Instagram and stories because they're seeing some sort of payoff from it. And you can also link directly from your stories, like to your website, or with a swipe up to a product in a shop, which is huge. And that's really another trend we'll talk about in the Instagram section, as to how people want to shop directly in a platform right now, not necessarily always go to your website.
Yeah, those are really good points. I'm always so impressed with those numbers when it comes to Instagram and business, because if Christina weren't teaching me those, I wouldn't believe it, because I think of it as a very different kind of platform, but it has become more and more powerful for businesses. So a question that we've been asked is, what are the current Instagram trends for business? So Christina's going to share a few of those with you.
I think it's important to note that all these trends, stories, reels, go live, it's not just for B2C. We're really seeing a rise in how B2B organizations are using Instagram. And so we think about how your organization might use it. So we talked about reels a little bit. They were kind of created to squash TikTok. People felt more comfortable, I think, with Instagram or with the connection with Facebook. Go live. People are going live on Instagram 1 million times a day. That is huge. And brands and organizations are really seeing some good business results from it. We talked a little bit about Instagram Shop, and then I will remind you, Instagram plus Facebook equals true love forever, because Facebook owns Instagram. So it will always prioritize content you send via Instagram into Facebook, and it will prioritize it, meaning it's going to show it to more people. And I will also say, creating those stories in Instagram, there are Facebook stories. There are stories you can create in Facebook, but if you have a business Instagram and a page and a business Facebook page, from your phone, you can simply create a story and with one button, send it to your Facebook stories. So again, double the content in one sitting, which is always really important.
Great. So we do have a question.
Do you have any questions in the chat about Instagram?
Well, there was a question that we had for Instagram around scheduling tools. Christina, do you have a recommendation for the best scheduling tool for Instagram? Our question comes from Carly, and she said she has not had luck due to integration and privacy settings.
Understandable. So I'll tell you really quickly, there are two ways to schedule an Instagram post. One is a tool where you put everything in on the desktop or your phone using the tool, and then it sends a reminder to the person's phone. And essentially it just, you copy and paste it into Instagram. That's really how it used to be for everything when Instagram first was being used by those third-party tools. Now you can just schedule it and it will automatically go to Instagram. So if you want something that's just going to automatically go, I would suggest Hootsuite or Buffer. You used to, again, it didn't automatically go to your Instagram. You still had to get in your phone and do something. But now both of those, there's no even third-party app you have to integrate. It's just you use that tool. We've been using Social Pilot with some success, and Sendable. I really like Sendable. Social Pilot, you do have to have a third party Zapier to integrate. So you do have to be careful with the tool that you choose.
Okay, thank you, Christina. So here's our sneak peek into our Instagram class, which will be on January 27th. We will talk a lot more about hashtags in Instagram for business. We've got some great local success examples that we'd love to share with you. Great businesses to follow, but also for you to get just phenomenal ideas on how to market your own business. We'll talk about Instagram stories and influencers. Christina has a super slick 5x5 methodology, which she will share with you in our Instagram class. And we will talk a little bit more about content creation and scheduling, and of course, trends.
All right, let's chat Twitter. Ooh, the Twitter. All right, so 22% of adult Americans use Twitter. It seems like everybody's on it, but Gen Z is really the highest demographic on Twitter. However, it is a great place for PR, news, real-time customer engagement, but this is a channel that goes fast. Lots of tweets happening really quickly, people dashing off content, people engaging, conversations that are happening at lightning speed. Again, we talked about 12% of the general population gets their news on Twitter, but 75%, I now think it's 80 in the turn of the year, of Twitter users get their news from Twitter. Why are people on Twitter? Well, watching videos is the number 3 reason, but Twitter is one of the only channels where there is no barrier between users. And what I mean by that is this. On Facebook, you have to send a friend request and someone has to agree. On LinkedIn, you have to send a connection and someone has to accept your connection. On Twitter, you can choose to follow anyone you want, and all of it is very public facing. So that means you can not only follow someone, but you can actively chat with people such as the President of the United States, people such as your favorite supermodel or your favorite athlete. I've tweeted Patrick Mahomes. I've tweeted some of my favorite authors, and now they have followed me on Twitter as well, and we tweet back and forth with each other. There's really no other platform in which you can do that in this way. So it breaks down a lot of barriers. So if your organization is often engaged with the media, if you're going to a lot of conventions and there's a lot of real-time tweeting, Twitter might be really great for you. But again, it's fast. The lifespan of a tweet is 7 minutes. And typically brands post 3 to 30 times a day. So if you're going to be on Twitter, you can't play around. It's a serious commitment. And for your business, it is a serious commitment. And to succeed on Twitter, you have to tweet often. It's no surprise that the most active users on Twitter have the most followers. Using hashtags and ways to optimize your content, tweets with hashtags get 100% more engagement. Tweets with images do better. Tweets with videos. So the way you tweet will reflect and impact rather the success that you have. And I always say, Twitter can get kind of Twitter. I'm on it constantly. Aviva will pass on that. But so you have to really stay focused on your brand on Twitter, because a tweet won't last forever unless someone takes a picture of it. And we have seen so many people get into trouble on Twitter and on social media in general with maybe saying things that they shouldn't have. So whoever runs your Twitter, make sure you have a nice set of rules that go along with it. But businesses can have a lot of success with Twitter. It's just kind of a different beast compared to the other channels. Which brings us to this question.
Yeah, which is perfect segue, because I think for the other 3 platforms, it's probably pretty easy for most of us that are joining us today to have some prioritization around which platforms are best for our individual businesses and organizations. Twitter's a little bit of a different animal, right? Because of that frequency element. And so we often get questions along the lines of, how do I know if Twitter is right for my business? And Christina's got some great points to help you decide if Twitter is right for your business.
So the first question I always ask someone when they want to know, should I use any channel, is who's your target demographic, and are they on that channel in abundance, right? So Aviva made some great points about teenagers or the under 35 set and where they live. So who's your audience? Are they on Twitter? Are they using Twitter frequently? That's your first question. Also, are you going to be able to keep up and use Twitter? You really need daily interaction. You need someone who can engage with your audience. If you look at any of our favorite organizations, like we'll call it the Kansas City Chiefs because we love them, they engage with their audience. They're not just posting something and leaving. They're posting something, they're commenting, they're sharing. So many local Kansas City businesses do an awesome job of that. We'll talk about some of those in the 201. And you also, in the scheduling that we talked about, you can schedule tweets, but you can't schedule engagement, meaning you can't schedule commenting on someone else's and having them comment back. And that happens in real time. Also, you have to be really sensitive to what is going on in the environment in which we live, in your city, in your business and industry. And so tweets, because they happen so rapidly and the news cycle is so frequent and important on Twitter, it's really important to be sensitive to what's going on there. And think about your competition. Is your competition on there? Why or why not? That will be an interesting answer for you. I will say one of the trends that we've seen of people stepping into social causes and concerns, that happens frequently on Twitter, especially in the last 6 months. And we will really see this in 2021. Nike, they drew a line in the sand. And when it came to certain social issues and Black Lives Matter, they said that their brand is going to stand up for that. And so if you go to Nike's Twitter, you will see that it is quite literally filled with social issues. But that's a decision that they made for their brand, and they've seen either the benefits or ramifications from making those decisions. So I think before you step into a trend such as the causes you choose to support or social issues, you need to think about how those will reflect upon, obviously, your leadership in your organization, and if you should step into those conversations and in what way you should step into them on Twitter. So some things to think about, I think, internally. We can talk more about that in Twitter for sure. And we always say, don't let Twitter become a career limiting risk. Like our old friend, the CEO of CrossFit, tweeted one bad thing and off he went because he wasn't being smart about that for your organization. Think about what you're going to tweet and who's going to manage it for you. One of the trends on Twitter the last couple of years, and Wendy's does an awesome job of this, is being sarcastic and fun and having a great time. Think about if that's right for your brand. So before you start and get invested in the Twitter game, really spend some time there and decide if that's the platform that's right for you and your organization.
Yeah, and when we talk about career limiting, it really applies to all social media. So Christina mentioned early on, personal is personal and business is business. And think about every time you post about your business, it's a reflection of your brand. And depending upon what you're supporting or what you're against, is that what you want your business to stand for? It could be very different than what you personally stand for. So we say that because, you can alienate clients and customers and donors even depending upon what you post. And that's not what we want for you with your social media game. Okay. All right. So it doesn't look like I've got any other current Twitter questions, but know that we've got a little bit of time before we close. I'm going to start to segue into kind of the wrap up for you, but I will keep monitoring the chat. So if we have time at the end and you've got questions that you posed, I'll do my very best to help get those answered. So our Twitter for Business class will be the same session that we have our Instagram class. So we're going to spend half of our time on Instagram and half on Twitter. We will talk about Twitter for Business. We'll share some local success examples. Of course, we'll talk about hashtags. We'll talk about customer service, because if that is the business that you are in, Twitter is a phenomenal platform for you. And then we'll talk about 2021 trends as well. Okay, so social media do's and don'ts, and this slide and the next few slides are also in your handouts. So feel free to take notes or know that they're a reference for you. We want you to create a social media strategy that links up with your business goals. And we want you to think about how each post will impact your brand, as I just mentioned. To keep things interesting for your followers, find a balance between promotions, incentives, information, and fun. Don't have everything be the same kind of post. And just to add to that, you should go back in and regularly look at what types of posts get the most likes or comments or shares to give you a sense of who your audience is and what they enjoy hearing about from you most often. Do more of that and less of the other. Stop trying to sell so hard. I did have a few questions about selling, and my response was always less selling. Talk more about who your company is, what you're excited about, what's new that's coming. Tell your story. It's an opportunity for you to kind of really showcase your brand, your personality. It's not e-commerce. It's different than e-commerce. So think of it like that. Always remain professional. And then track your results. Like I just said, identify those key performance indicators that are most important to you. Is it the number of followers that you have on your business pages? Is it engagement metrics, like how many likes you have or shares or comments, or how many clicks to the website? Think about which metrics are most important. And then when you think about your content, design your content to help drive the results that you're trying to achieve. And then the final point is really my mantra, which is reciprocity. Engage with others on their pages, like their posts, comment on their posts, be a good social media neighbor, especially for other small businesses. And I promise you, the more you do that for businesses, they will notice because they're looking at who's engaging with their posts, and they will begin to reciprocate. And really the reason you want all of that is not only for a sense of community and to help your company grow, but like we've been talking about, it is the way to generate stronger algorithms so that all of these great things that we're teaching you, that we hope that you are able to implement, actually get the results that you're trying to achieve. So tips for building your plan, because if you haven't picked up on it yet, Christina and I are all about building a plan. We recommend you find the time to engage. So create those stories, share those tweets, all the things you can't do through scheduling. If you are on those kinds of apps, find a little bit of time daily. Maybe it's the first 30 minutes at your desk or when you're having coffee in the morning. And then we can't say enough about planning. So establish your strategy for social media, make sure it aligns with your business goals. Our recommendation is that you plan the content for your calendar a minimum of 30 days at a time, but we've given you the tools to do it 90 days at a time. But always have that flexibility so that you can add in content on trending topics that are relevant to your business. We would say set aside time at the end of each month to work on your calendar. And if you don't have the time to do it, don't just not do it. Hire someone to do it for you. It could even be a social media savvy younger person. I see all the time companies are looking for a high school student or a college student that's really savvy on Instagram, for example, to help with their social media plan just on that platform. There are lots of great inexpensive ways to hire people to do it. And then depending on the size of your business and what your business goals are, you might need to work with somebody who it's their business, like a Christina, or like somebody else if you're not, if you know somebody else. Gather those photos and videos, put them in a file so you're kind of collecting them as you go. And then if you need to, we highly recommend using an app to help create and schedule your posts. Now, one of the big things that we get asked all the time is, how do you come up with content? It just seems like a lot of work, and I don't know that I have that much unique information to share. There's always something to post. You can talk about product previews. You can talk about sales, promotions, contests. You can spotlight employees. You can talk about awards that your organization is involved in. You can talk about organizations that you support. Maybe your company does volunteer work at a nonprofit in your area. You can show pictures on that. There's customer appreciation, there's user-generated content. You can talk about holidays. There are so many fun holidays out there. I guarantee you there's something out there that aligns with your business or organization, no matter what your business or organization is. And then it's now your turn. We're handing it over to you. So our recommendation is, if you're not on social media at all for your business, select one or two to start with. If you're already on one, select another one for sure, maybe a two based on who your consumer target is. Establish and update your profile, plan Q1 of this year. We're only 3 days into the work week of 2021. Think about your themes, think about when you're gonna post, and think about what you're going to measure. And the next 3 slides are all in your handouts, and we really wanted to just give you something tangible that you would have so you could start marking it up, and you wouldn't have an excuse to say, wow, that class was really great, but I haven't found the time to sit down and do any of it yet. We don't want you to say that. So here's a recap of what's coming ahead in our 201 level classes over the next 3 weeks. Brandy's done a great job of putting the link in there. Again, we encourage all of you to share your business names in the chat so we can follow you, and we would love it if you would follow us. Let me think, Christina, anything else that we have in closing?
No, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know this is a fast and furious afternoon. It's a fast and furious afternoon. So we're glad you could join us. And if you have, please connect with us on these channels. Come to the 201s with your questions specifically about the channels. We'll have more time to get into those specific questions there.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, this whole webinar is recorded. We do not give out our slides because we continue to teach these classes, but anything you need to access, you can get on the link for Women's Business Center, and it will be at your disposal anytime you decide to engage with it.
So as we leave, we'll give you a little piece that we gave you some homework. Try out one of the trends. You can try it personally first. So try to create a LinkedIn story. Aviva did it for the first time.
I did.
Great. Try to play around with going live on Facebook. The great thing is you can try out some of these things personally first, and then decide how you're going to shape them for your organization. And as always, we want to plan, but you can experiment a little personally first and see how that feels to you and how you might benefit your organization.
Well, great. Thank you, Christina and Aviva. Another great session for sure. As they mentioned, we did record this session and are posting it on the WBC YouTube channel. I've shared that link a couple of times. It does take us a couple days to get it edited and posted, but we will have it on our YouTube page. And then also, as Aviva mentioned, I've shared the link to sign up for all of the upcoming sessions through our Eventbrite page. And I can already tell that several of you have been registering throughout the presentation, which is great. So we're definitely looking forward to seeing you next week for Facebook 201. Thank you all for joining us. And thanks again, Christina and Aviva. Take care and have a great day.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to keep the page up because it has a little bit of information there for just a second.
Yeah, so Chuck who asked how to contact the teachers. Here are our email addresses, and we're also on social, so you can contact us that way. Christina, we have a question around, can you do Facebook Live from different countries?
Sure.
Yeah, you can do it from anywhere.
There might be some different rules based on what country you're in, but yes, you can do it from anywhere that it's offered.
Terrific. Well, certainly if there are other questions, feel free to reach out to me or Aviva or Christina, and hopefully we'll see you all for Facebook 201 next week.